So with only one game remaining between now and the end of the season, I thought this would be a timely point to look into the Bookies end of season promotion odds to see just who they're fancying for the top 6 right now, and how likely each of those sides are to be promoted. Would like to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Going into the final day of the season, of course, we already know that Leicester have the league title wrapped up, but that second place spot is still all to play for, and we've still got a spot open in the top 6 as well. All of which will be discussed in today's video. I'd like to hear your thoughts down below. Without any further ado, let's jump in. Starting out in 7th place, the Bookies do have Hull City. They are the outsiders for promotion right now, but do still have a chance going into the final day of sneaking into the top 6. The Bookies have given them promotion odds of 40-1 at this stage, which is way higher than any of these other teams we will discuss. Obviously, Hull travel to Plymouth on the final day of the season, needing to pick up all 3 points, and they're going to need at least one result to go their way, along with beating Plymouth, which certainly isn't a tap-in of a result either, with Plymouth themselves scrapping for survival on the final day. For Hull to leapfrog one of the sides above them on the final day, they'll either need West Brom to lose against Preston, or they'll need Norwich to lose quite heavily against Birmingham. They'll need a 7-goal swing over Norwich if they're to leapfrog the Canaries, which could happen. We've seen crazier things happening on the Championship final day, but does seem their most likely avenue of getting into the top 6 is if West Brom lose and they win. Obviously, Hull were able to keep their playoff hopes alive with that dramatic 3-3 draw against Ipswich over the weekend. I'd go as far to say is that's maybe my favourite game I've watched this season. It was back and forth, both teams really going for it. Some nice goals scored in that game as well, but have the Tigers left themselves with a bit too much to do on the final day? Perhaps, because they are needing a big result to go in their favour. With that being said, all that Hull can do right now is play their own game, beat Plymouth, and see where it takes them, because as we'll discuss in a minute, West Brom and Norwich, they've each had a slip in them recently. In 6th place, the Bookies then have West Brom with promotion odds of 6-1. Now, a few months ago, West Brom fans probably thought that they would have already had the top 6 secured by the final game week of the season. For the last 3 months at least, it's felt like they've had that 5th place spot down on lock, but after going on a bit of a turbulent run in these final few weeks, having only won one of their last 7 league matches, they have left themselves in a bit of a precarious situation where they need to pick up a result against Preston on the final day to secure their spot in the top 6. A draw against North End will likely be enough for West Brom to get over the line. It would take a monumental goal swing from Hull to overtake them at this stage, but it's an interesting situation West Brom find themselves in, and especially if they do go a goal down in that game against Preston and Hull all of a sudden take the lead against Plymouth, I'm sure there will be plenty of nervy Baggies fans around the Hawthorns. With that being said, I totally get that West Brom haven't been on a good run of form recently. I do think that a final day of the season clash with Preston is quite kind. Let's not forget, this is a Preston side they're playing that have only won one of their last 7 matches, but more crucially than that, it's a Preston side who have only scored in 1 of their last 7 Championship matches. The goals have really dried up for Ryan Lowe's men of late. It was a bit of a pitiful performance on Monday night, I thought, against Leicester. Felt like a bit of a training exercise for the Foxes, and I mean, you saw my predictions yesterday. I am fancying a West Brom win here. Pressure can do crazy things to teams, but with the way North End are going at the moment, I would be really surprised if West Brom don't get the job done on the final day. The Bookies have then given Norwich City promotion odds of 11-2. Their place in the top 6 isn't quite secured as of recording, but they are a little bit more sturdy than West Brom at this stage. Had they won any of their previous 2 home matches against Bristol City or Swansea, Norwich's place in the playoffs would already be confirmed, but after back-to-back draws, they have maybe left themselves with a little bit to do on the final day, where they obviously come up against Birmingham. A point would definitely get Norwich over the line and into the top 6, and to be honest, even if they lost that game against Birmingham, on the balance of probabilities, they still probably make the top 6. It would require a goal difference swing of 7 for Hull to overtake them. If it is to be Norwich and West Brom who make it into the top 6, I'd be interested to hear from those fans in terms of who would be your preferred matchup in the semi-final, because obviously it's still in Norwich or West Brom's hands. Whoever could finish 5th or 6th, they could leapfrog each other on the final day. It has felt like for a lot of this season so far, there's been a top 4 to the Championship and then the remainder of the chasing pack. And going into the playoffs, it probably would be West Brom and Norwich who would be the underdogs, or Hull if they managed to sneak in there. But you know what? At their best, both teams can be really good and certainly capable of going toe-to-toe with any Championship outfit. In 4th place, it's Southampton with promotion odds of 13-8. Now, regardless of what happens on the final day, Southampton will finish in 4th place. We've known about this for quite some time. Did feel like that loss against Cardiff really took the wind out of their sails. They followed it up with a dismal performance, losing 5-0 against Leicester, and then another defeat over the weekend against Stoke. If they lose the final day against Leeds, that'll be 4 consecutive defeats for Russell Martin's men, which isn't exactly the sort of momentum you want to be going into the playoffs with. The head-to-head between Leeds and Southampton I do think is quite interesting. From Southampton's point of view, it is a bit of a pressure-free environment by the way of them not having anything to play for. But stylistically, I think it's a good opportunity for Russell Martin to test his side against Leeds, who, let's face it, if they were to end up in the playoffs, probably would be the favourites. Regardless of their history in the playoffs in the past, Leeds do have the best squad. They've accumulated the most points of those sides that would finish in the top 6 and be heading into the playoffs, and so the mentality of that Southampton squad heading into the final day I think will be quite interesting, and how strong Russell Martin actually goes for that game as well. In 3rd place, it is Leeds United with promotion odds of 11-8. That result against QPR really was the hammer blow to Daniel Farke's side and their automatic promotion hopes. Still have a slim chance of sneaking into the top 2 on the final day, but it is going to take a bit of a miracle from this stage, isn't it? They need to beat Southampton, and they're then relying on Huddersfield to get one over on Ipswich. Ipswich only requiring 1 point on the final day to seal a spot in the top 2. Don't think anyone sees that happening, but hey, it's the Championship. We have seen crazy things happen in the past. On the back of that QPR result, though, I think most Leeds fans accepted that it probably will be the playoffs for them this season, and statistically, Leeds would be the favourites going into the playoffs. The team that finishes 3rd, generally speaking, does tend to win the playoffs more often than not, but Leeds have found themselves in a very similar situation, obviously under Marcelo Bielsa, and ended up going out in the playoff semi-finals to Derby after a dramatic 2-legged affair. Bookies do fancy them as the favourites for the playoffs with promotion odds of 11-8, but I'm sure Leeds fans, given their history in the playoffs, would be significantly more wary than those odds would suggest. It is dreamland that Ipswich find themselves in right now, with promotion odds of 1-33, only requiring a single point on the final day of the season against Huddersfield, who are already all but relegated, let's face it. Huge result for Ipswich in midweek, a great battle against Coventry, but managing to come through that game in the end, and now returning to Portman Road, where all season they've been so strong. Surely this is where they get themselves over the line. Now, it would be typical Championship if Ipswich were to lose against Huddersfield, but Leeds weren't to capitalise on the result and they were to drop points against Southampton, but I'm not sure I see that version of events unfolding. I do think Ipswich have been so fired up for these last 2 matches against both Hull and Coventry, and while there have been a few gaps in their back line at times, I just think that pressure on that Huddersfield back line will be absolutely relentless, and at the end of the day, regardless of the pressure, I do fancy Ipswich to win that one quite comfortably. But obviously, at the top of the pack, it is Leicester City, already gone ahead and secured promotion and the league title itself. They went ahead and did so at Deepdale. Bit of an easy game for the Foxes in the end. I think that Preston made it quite easy for Leicester. We were very standoffish in that game, didn't muster any attacking threat whatsoever, but will be an interesting test for the Foxes on the final day. I'm sure they'll want to accumulate 100 points and go up with that sort of title. Going up against the Blackburn side, who still have survival to play for. We'll wait and see which version of Leicester shows up for that game, whether it's the professional outfit that showed up at Deepdale with that ruthless mentality, or are they a little bit hungover after, no doubt, a week of celebrating? We'll have to wait and see. Regardless, for Leicester, they've already finished top of the table, and it has been a bit of a rollercoaster ride for Foxes fans really, with how clear they were in the first half of the season, dipping down a little bit in the second, but ultimately getting themselves over the line. As you can see to the side of me, those are the promotion odds for each of the sides in the Championship still battling for promotion. Who would your picks right now be for the sides joining Leicester in the Premier League next season? Let me know in the comments down below. But other than that, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure to drop a like, and I'll see you all in the next one.